Sir, you're about to see something really special.
Really thought this part of my life was behind me. Frenzy disappeared with the drinking 3 years ago. Why now? This makes no sense, and I'm right on the verge of freaking out.
Back from your life,
these people can be animals.
what you burn,
Thingy's out.
some bitter things you should never
Good cheese.
learn. Wallow through the days.
Remember, cosplay's not consent.
So here's to me. Congratulations, me. Yay, me.
This would all be so much easier if I was hammered. Hammered.
Won't be there anymore. You can take away the anger, but you leave behind the pain. It's your soul I
New ventures are always scary.
feel till I'm melting
Blah, blah, blah. Something positive and uplifting.
tomorrow. But the hurt will still remain. In your soul I'll live forever till I'm melting in.
Don't miss our new film, The Love Song of William H. Shaw, coming soon to a streaming service near you. Hey everyone, this is Cliff from Talking Pondo. Just wanted to give you a quick heads up about spoilers on the show. We do talk about the films in a certain amount of detail, so you may want to watch the film first and then come back if you're not a fan of spoilers. Also, every now and then there's a little bit of adult language, so we wanted to give you fair warning on that. We hope you enjoy the episode, and we really appreciate you listening. Welcome to Season 2 of Making Pondo and Talking Pondo. Talking Pondo is a podcast where Cliff and Marty give each other a film to watch and talk about them in detail. Some episodes will include a special guest. Making Pondo is a podcast where Cliff and Marty talk to people they have worked with and discuss their experiences on set. All right, Marty, that's us. We're back.
And we're back.
Back to Talking Pondo.
Talking smack, talking Pondo.
Talking movie smack, talking movie Pondo.
Yeah. So
I think it's going to be a good one this week.
Yeah. It tends to be, Even if the movie's weird, we can ramble about it for a half hour.
True.
At bare minimum. So I'm Marty Catola, as always.
I'm Cliff Campbell. I don't know why we're having such trouble getting started here. And this week's movies are...
Yeah, we're getting towards the end of the season. It takes a hot minute sometimes. Okay. What are this week's movies? Well, they're movies. It's Planet of the Apes from 1968, my wild card pick of the end of the season, and Shanghai Noon, a movie I suspect that Cliff made me watch because I said I hadn't seen it.
That's exactly it. You nailed it. I mean, and honestly, that's for me the entire point of this show is to make you watch movies you haven't seen that I have seen and see what you think.
Mm-hmm.
And Shanghai Noon was and look, I'll be honest, right off the bat, you have to understand that Shanghai Noon is like the perfect Western sequel to Rush Hour. It's it's the same movie, only kind of in the Old West. So,
well, before we dive too deep into the movies, I want to introduce a new segment this week called Viewer Mail. That's what it took me so long to figure out what I was doing here as I was looking for it. And, it's from friend of the podcast, Gene, but it's still Viewer Mail.
Okay.
So it's about the Hooey's episode with Friday the 13th and African Queen. And so, one of the messages is one of these things is not like the other. It's the two movies. But then he says, Did you know that the king of make-believe on Mr. Rogers' name is King Friday the 30th? I don't know what that had to do with the movie, but I think maybe it had something to do. Maybe he's trying to write for the 13th. King Friday the 13th.
King Friday the 13th.
That ties in. Well, hey, it makes about as much sense as the rants that I go on sometimes.
Well, yeah, and look, there's nothing better than an unhinged viewer rant. I'll have them on the show all day long, so keep sending them in.
So, yeah, it was a little clunky trying to read that, but hey, at least I read it.
Listeners, send us in that email. We'll be happy to read it on the show.
Right, well, because otherwise we have to talk about our movies. And so we already started talking about From 2000 Shanghai Noon, a movie that I suspect Cliff had me watch because I said I hadn't watched Rush Hour either.
That's it, exactly.
What is Shanghai Noon from the year 2000? I'm still asking this question.
Shanghai Noon, directed by Tom Day, starring Jackie Chan, Owen Wilson, and Lucy Liu, who I'd forgotten was in this movie. Let's see. A Chinese man travels to the Wild West to rescue a kidnapped princess. After teaming up with a train robber, the unlikely duo takes on a Chinese trader and his corrupt boss. So that's your log line. And your story is a 19th century Western. Chong Wang is a clumsy imperial guard to the Emperor of China. When Princess Pei Pei is kidnapped from the Forbidden City, Wang feels personally responsible and insists on joining the guards sent to rescue the princess, who has been whisked away to the United States. In Nevada, and hot on the trail of the kidnappers, Wang is separated from the group and soon finds himself in an unlikely partnership with Roy O'Bannon, a small-time robber with delusions of grandeur. Together, the two forge onto one misadventure after another.
I'll say.
So shot in the year 2000, by the way.
Yeah, and shot in Alberta, Canada.
Yeah, shot in Canada, yeah.
It's not from the United States. That makes a little more sense.
Yeah, and in the Forbidden City of China.
That's true. There also was the beginning. You remember Dukes of Hazzard, right?
Do I remember Dukes of Hazzard? Yes.
You remember the spinoff of Dukes of Hazzard?
Enos?
Yeah, that's what this reminded me of a little bit.
Oh. I literally, so my first note is I literally forgot Jackie Chan's character's name, Chun Wang, and when you're supposed to, and when he, of course, he misunderstands it as John Wayne and says that's the worst cowboy name ever.
So was Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Oh, that was Back to the Future Part 3. I'm sorry. Hey, it's a good joke. We might as well if it bears repeating. And then his name is Wyatt Earp.
Wyatt Earp, of course.
Owen Wilson's character.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, "What? That's bad. That's a bad name."
So right away, the movie spends 20 minutes basically setting up both characters. Maybe 25.
Like
I think.
Rush Hour.
Yeah. That's why, again, I think if you watch this movie, you see so many things that are and Rush Hour is 2 years earlier, 98. So it just seems like they were like, well, let's it's not exactly the same, but it has all the tones of Rush Hour.
They're trying to make that magic again.
Jackie Chan, the responsible guy playing against the goofball,
Yeah, I kind of wish Chris Tucker had been in this movie as well. Yeah. But then people would say it's, ripping off Blazing Saddles too much or something, I guess. So
Western
This was still a pretty big hit. It was enough to make a sequel, which I also never saw.
Shanghai Nights.
Yeah. Like High Noon. Okay, I get it. After all this time, I finally understand the joke in the title. Because he's also the Shanghai Kid. He's labeled as a wanted outlaw in the movie, the Jackie Chan character, as East meets West.
So $55 million budget. It made $56 million in Canada and the US, and then $100 million worldwide. And then probably went to DVD and cleaned up a little bit there. But I mean, not a massive hit, but I mean, it was a successful movie.
It was enough, and it's probably the most money that anything spawned from F Troop ever made.
Yeah, F Troop.
Boy, does he love to have his humor really stuck back in, I guess from what he was influenced by.
Mm-hmm.
Things from the 40s and 50s. But, as I was watching the movie, I felt like I was supposed to be preparing a case for the reels of justice. I was like, oh man, do I defend it or do I go against it? I don't know, but this would be a good one to take on there, I think, because it's a fine movie, but it's
Yeah.
it's no Rush Hour.
No, it's weird. It looks good and it looks both good and bad. The stunt pieces are really well done.
That's the good part. The stunt
That's
part.
the good parts are really good.
And there's everything else holding it together where it's like, oh boy, I wish that was engaging.
Yeah. The movie doesn't make a lot of sense either. Like, first off, you got Walt Goggins with his big teeth again, and he's running around. He's running around screaming at everybody, kind of like the alcalde.
He's been around that long.
Yeah. This is one of his first movies, if I'm not mistaken. But he's screaming in this movie like the alcalde in Zorro the Gay Blade. Just like that's what he chose to do. My character is really loud.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get the Chinese, the evil Chinese guy who kills that dude with an oyster shell to the throat. That's his introduction to us. It's like, oh, this guy's deadly. Again, I totally forgot Lucy Liu was in this movie. It reminds me of the Wild Wild West in a weird way because,
but better, right?
Yeah, but neither of them are trying very hard. It's just. It's doing what it's doing. And look, I'll say there's some, like we talk about, there's some great stunt sequences in the film. The fight, I love the fact that they choose to make the Native Americans, or indigenous people, however you want to say them, really good warriors. Like they're not pushovers. Jackie Chan has those fights with them, off by the side of the stream where he saves that kid. And then later on, and there's some badasses. I like that quite a bit. I thought that was really cool looking on film. And there's some funny parts, like, I like that line where he says, "Who is that?" "That's my wife." And he goes, "How long have you been in this country?" He goes, 4 days. He goes, "Nice work." I was like, this movie's so stupid.
We haven't seen a hanging sequence in a movie for a bit. So
True.
Here we go with yet another hanging. But you can't really count. It's a Western,
Yeah.
And I think it's only our second Western, right? Because I brought on that Buster Scruggs way back when, which also has hanging in it. So finally returned to the Westerns.
Western's been lacking a bit, I think. And so this is probably a good opportunity to bring another one in.
And it's at least the second time we've watched a movie where the hanging was foiled by somebody shooting the rope.
Right.
Insert trope here.
Classic. So Jackie, he fights the Native Americans, then he becomes friends with them, and then he ends up getting high with them, and then he wakes up and he's married to one, and then the movie moves on. He's like, "Bye, I gotta go," and then he goes into town and meets Roy, and they get their asses whooped, and they get thrown down the bar, with all the glasses, and then they get arrested, and then she breaks them out. She's kind of the Deus Ex Machina of this movie, completely. Like, she's always bailing them out, shoots the rope to save them from, being hung, and then later on does something I can't remember what it is, but it's like she has no other purpose. Like, she doesn't. You don't see her interact much at all till the end when Roy decides it's a love interest.
It's just a pure genre piece in that respect. You're watching this for the action scenes, and everything else you're just kind of sitting through to get to the rest of the action scenes. But you glazed over one of the more interesting parts of the movie, I thought.
Oh yeah,
before Jackie Chan is sent on the wrong direction. When he finds Owen Wilson very uncomfortably buried up to his
neck,
creep show style, buried up to his neck in the desert,
with the vultures picking at him.
You were talking about being claustrophobic before we got on, and I'm just like, boy, this is making me uncomfortable. I know it's supposed to be funny, but that's so fucked up. you know, and then of course you're supposed to look at it like a Looney Tune movie again. It's a cartoon, it, but boy, that's just disturbing. And he's using the chopsticks, and then when he shows up at what he believes is Carson City, and it's not. Oh, you
Right.
weren't expecting to see me in there, referring to Owen Wilson's character,
Right.
who in real life, I mean, was this like a lot of coke, and then like personal tragedy happened shortly thereafter? The early 2000s were it's like that movie Go. They're a blur.
Mhm. Oh,
You know,
wow.
I was talking to a coworker, and we were like, you know, you could probably look at a list of movies from 1999 right next to a list of movies from the year 2000, and I bet you in the mainstream movies you'd probably see a visible dip in quality in the year 2000 as opposed to 99. And well, as we know, in the late 70s, boy, cocaine is a hell of a drug, and it affects movies. Now, this is not 1941. This is a lot more coherent, but it's better than like Almost Heroes or something like that, you know, which was probably also very coke fueled.
I mean, it's production. It feels like Rush Hour late 90s because it feels like the same production company just rolled right into making Shanghai Noon. Like, okay, let's make everything a Western, put Jackie in, clothes, bring in Owen Wilson, you know, and it just, because it still feels like
The formula's there and the
it's all
action
there.
is there,
Yeah.
but like the charm isn't.
Mm-hmm. It's missing.
I mean, look, the movie's still fine, you know, it's not harmless, but it's not. It's no Rush Hour.
Yeah, it's no Rush Hour. Yeah, exactly.
And I can't help but compare it to that as
Owen Wilson is no Chris Tucker.
yeah.
But these buddy comedies are sort of like, they have a lot of weird echoes with rom-coms. You know, there's a meet cute, you know, there's a they don't like each other, then they end up, you know, bonding and becoming a pair, you know, fighting pair, and then they end up, you know, breaking up. One has to save the other one or come back. You know, they're very there's those weird echoes that always make me laugh about these types of movies when the tropes play too hard.
Yeah. And much like Rush Hour, I wish it was more of a buddy movie. They're split apart so much.
Yeah. I do like the scene where they're in the jail together, and he's like, you said something, not piss shirt bin bar.
That is
You know,
different.
and he's helping him. He's like, no, I don't want to touch your shirt. That's disgusting. You know, and, again, yeah. So scenes like that were fun. They're fun, but they're few and far between. I think my favorite quote in the movie is, "I don't know karate, but I know crazy, and I will use it." That's probably my favorite line.
It is similar to Rush Hour in the respect that it feels like it's still the early 80s for the people making these movies. Like this movie could have come out in 1982, almost the exact same movie.
Yeah, I mean, if this had come out around the time of like Tango and fucking Cash, this would have been a huge hit.
Still would have played, but even then, shit, it even played in the year 2000.
Yeah.
But this is the starting of the waning, right? Like Jackie Chan had broken through, but then we're about to go off to things like Tuxedo, and then he just starts cranking them out again. And we know who he is now, but that height of breaking through to America finally happened.
Yeah,
right around here.
Thank God he made The Foreigner a few years ago. Really gritty movie that really showcased his abilities and his age too. I thought we did a really good job. Anyway, the rope and the horseshoe fight is really fun and really smart. And apparently I read that they couldn't use a fake horseshoe because of the weight. It wouldn't work with the rope. And so they had to figure it out because Chan refused to hit anybody with a real horseshoe. And so they had to figure out all these angles. But the horseshoe stuff that they do in that fight when he's fighting those three guys and he's swinging that horseshoe around with a rope is really cool.
He hits himself with it in the blooper reel.
Yeah. By the way, what's this mine? This is the one part of the movie I don't understand is we keep cutting back to Princess Pepe and this dude who's holding her, and he's at a mine. He's having people mines, but all of the Chinese people that, you know, I guess are his, or, you know, I guess it's supposed to be awful because he's having he's Chinese and he's having the Chinese mind or whatever. But they're digging something. I don't know what for.
Well, it's the manatees from South Park wrote this movie. They had a tank full of all the Western tropes, and Chinese in a mine is one of the ones they picked. It doesn't have to make sense. It's just something stereotypical that we've seen in past Westerns, and we're going to put it in there. Because how many times have you seen that, right? You know. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's just a place for the labor camp or whatever.
Is there another movie where a horse gets drunk?
Probably.
Because I feel like that's another. Yeah, I feel like that's another trope.
They give the horse a bunch of stuff in Half Baked. That one scene, a bachelor party, the donkey.
Oh, bachelor party, the donkey. Yeah.
And I'm sure there's probably a Mr. Ed episode or two where. Write in, people, if you know Mr. Ed well enough, and if there's an episode where he gets drunk. And wasn't that a weird shot? And I'm like, what is that? But later you find out, well, he can't escape because his horse is drunk.
Right.
It's just strange. It's just strange. But it's kind of like Super Fuzz. You know, this would have played great if I was 8.
I see, and I in 2000 I'm 27 years old, and so I'm really like, and again, this is any Jackie Chan stuff, any of this that new style of kung fu. You get, I think this is right after is when you get Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which is to me one of the greatest martial art films of all time.
I think it's in the same year. Yeah,
I think it is. So, it's this new gorgeous style of kung fu that's not it's not that slow fake kind of weird style that you were, which was fun watching growing up in the 70s and the 80s. But then suddenly you get this more, and I'm not necessarily talking about the wire stuff, but just the way that the combat seems a little bit more believable, faster, much faster. And so I was a big fan of his, and especially like I remember watching him do that run up the wall thing he does to get up a wall where he's plants his foot, blam, blam, and jumps up. I was just like, who is this dude? What the hell?
Well, now you're talking about the real reason the movie exists. It's for all the action stuff. It's almost critic proof because everything else is just a drapery to link these fight scenes together. And boy, do we keep getting weirder ones. Like, I was like, didn't they just get captured? How did they get away? And I was like, it don't matter, man. Just let it go and watch Owen Wilson fight in a monk suit. Does not matter how he got there. Even if your memory's telling you, wait a minute, when did this part happen? But weren't they tied to a chair? Well, they're not now. So I guess just go with it. You tell me to go with it, I'll go with it.
Yeah, I'm an hour and 20 minutes in at one point, and I couldn't believe I still had 25 more minutes of this movie to go.
It's so long.
It's too long.
It's one of the long ones that we've had to sit through for the show.
It's about 8 or 9 minutes too long. It's not too long, but it's you could easily cut 8 or 9 minutes out of this film, no problem.
It's like the Return of the King of action movies with that ending where it's just like there's 25 minutes, and then I'm like, oh, you got to wrap up the Goggins gang, and I'm like, do you really though? I would have been okay with the movie ending.
But what happens? Deus Ex Machina. Oh, suddenly his family shows up. His Native American family with his wife shows up to save his
weird,
ass.
Wasn't it?
Yeah,
it almost didn't match in a way. But there's deleted scenes in the movie. And that scene where they show up at the end and they're shooting into the church, there's a sign behind them that says something like Bulldog Drummond.
Yes.
Apparently that was Curtis Armstrong's character who's completely deleted from the movie.
Really?
Yeah, so it makes me wonder, did they change some stuff right? Because it seemed very abrupt that they go outside and they're like, oh, and it's like, wait, what?
I can't imagine this movie being 15
longer
or 18 more minutes of Curtis Armstrong with it. I can't imagine that. That's insanity to me.
That's what I read on Wiki, I think it was. In doing the research. Apparently there's a third one, but there hasn't been any traction on it for like 10 years, so I don't know if it's going to happen. Jackie Chan would have to get interested in wanting to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I take it Nights probably isn't that great.
It's about this level. You know, I mean, Rush Hour 2, I think probably is going to be better. Oh God, we may have to watch both of these next season or something at some point.
You don't even have a copy of Shanghai Nights in your video library, I noticed.
No, I'll have to get one.
Made me think, maybe that's not very good.
Maybe I can find a Blu-ray.
Oof.
But anyways, I think 2 is probably a better probably a better sequel to 1 for Rush Hour, and Nights kind of drops off a little more significantly, although there is some decent stuff in it.
It sounds like it from the description I read.
One of the things, again, I think with Jackie Chan that happened and why he fell off is that his earlier stuff is exciting, kind of kung fu oriented with a little bit of parkour thrown in. And the later stuff ended up being these really intricate, kind of overblown fight sequences that got a little more and more ridiculous as they went along. And that whole ending final scene with the bell and all the ropes and all the falling.
Oh, jeez.
It's just like, dude, come on. Like, just give me a nice, two good fight sequence for the end. I don't need this whole, like, it's kind of like the Wild Wild West. Here comes the spider,
I think I wouldn't mind the long fight scenes towards the end if it wasn't for what you pointed out earlier, 25 minutes to get the thing going. Maybe they could have tightened some of that stuff up. And
very true. Yeah.
But what do I know? This made $1 million.
Imagine another 12 minutes with Curtis Armstrong. You'd be like, ooh. Phew. Now the movie's 2 hours long.
Mm-hmm. So there's a hint of it in that backdrop behind them. Because I even noticed it when I was watching it. There's a spread. It's like Bulldog Drummond, and I'm thinking, what is it, like a carnival out there or something? So
I don't know, man. I didn't see the extras. I just saw the movie. I don't want to really watch the extras.
I don't even know if they are on the extras. I mean, I have no idea. I just saw the movie itself. So
that's about all I have to say about this, I think. It was a fun revisit to my, to the year 2000, but I probably won't go back for a while. For this one, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna
go. I thought it was pretty bad.
I'm gonna go 2.5 stars.
Yeah, I'm 2. Because for the action, that's why you're watching this.
Mm-hmm.
It's for the action alone. Yeah. You're not watching an Oscar caliber.
And again, some of that action is pretty good.
Just the action.
Mm-hmm.
So you could fast forward to the action scenes if you really wanted to. Yeah. You wouldn't really be missing too much,
Now, if Owen Wilson's banter was a bit better, if those scenes were a bit funnier and a little, and like you said, if somebody was like, don't fast forward to that scene, it's hilarious, then, yeah, probably. But like you said, you can kind of zip through it and just watch oh, look, the horse is drunk. He sat down. Oh, look, there's the fight scene. Oh, look, there's that's done and over with.
Yeah, I'm surprised Larry Storch wasn't in this. But he was in SOB a few weeks ago as the guru. So you want to talk about weird... So that takes us from the Forbidden City to the Forbidden Zone.
That's right. The Forbidden Zone. So, folks, are you going to explain it, or am I?
I mean, this movie is very important to the program for many ways because we named our old TV show after it. Long story short,
Yeah, Marty and I met, and 6 months later, we were doing a public access television show, and this is honestly,
give or take,
probably a year before Wayne's World came out or something like that. It was.
Well, they were already doing this.
They were doing the skits, yeah.
But the movie Wayne's World, we predated that by 2 years in the theater.
Yeah, so it was that we were doing this public access show. We were not Garth and Wayne, but we were doing this public access show that
we did a parody of Garth and Wayne, though.
We did. I think he was 15 and I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got the time slot, we had to figure out what to call the show. And so we kept throwing around ideas and so on, and then landed on the Forbidden Zone. I honestly don't remember how. I think you may have suggested it.
Yeah, it's so hard to say. There were so many different names.
Or was
And
it your
then
sister?
we weeded out the others. I think
No,
it came from one of us. Yeah.
I think it was you, actually.
And then we just went through all the other names and we're like, no, not that, not that, not that. And then that ended up, I think we almost called it "Warning: No Lifeguard on Duty."
Yes.
That almost was the title. It was too wordy though.
Yeah, it was the name of the pilot, though. That was the pilot episode was Warning: No Lifeguard on Duty. Yeah.
And so the Forbidden Zone started as the show named after Planet of the Apes, but soon became its own thing, which, much like the word Pondo, became so distant from the origins.
Mm-hmm.
But that show was about being in toxic wastelands, pretty much. So.
It is a part of the deep magic. So I thought we should talk about it.
And so that was it. Yeah, we could easily spend the next 30 minutes talking about that show. We're not even talking about the apes themselves. Much like this movie does itself for about the first 32 minutes before we even see an ape. But it's a good 32 minutes. But what is Planet of the Apes from 1968?
1968, rated G.
When the rating system didn't mean shit, because there's butts, there's crotches, there's taxidermy. Rated G. But we didn't know what G meant yet.
Director Franklin J. Schaffner. Starring Charlton Heston, Roddy McDowall, and Kim Hunter. After being kept in hypersleep during a long expedition into space, deep space, an astronaut crew crash lands in the 40th century on a planet where highly intelligent, non-human ape species are dominant and humans are enslaved.
I'm not supposed to know that.
Storyline. Taylor and two other astronauts come out of deep hibernation to find that their ship has crashed, escaping with little more than clothes that they find that they have landed on a planet where men are prelingual and uncivilized while apes have learned speech and technology. Taylor is captured and taken to the city of the apes after damaging his throat so that he is silent and cannot communicate with the apes. Well, that's a terrible storyline. But basically, yeah.
Yeah, you've seen it all before. You've probably seen this movie as many times as we have, but great thing about it, it always pulls you back in. It's always engaging. You know how it's going to end. You know all the beats, and you're still there for it. Is what I discovered watching it again this week. It was like, this movie still packs the punch. They go a little off the deep end immediately with the sequels. But, you could also chalk that up to Taylor's stubbornness of finding the Statue of Liberty and not turning around. And going, guys, this is my planet. We fucked up. Let's just start living in harmony now. No, you had to go the other way, and then we end up with mutants, time travel, uprisings. You just had to do it the hard way. But that does reset the timeline, I guess. But that's the convoluted sequels. If you just look at this one by itself, it's really kind of perfection. Yeah.
So right off the bat, I want to say that this is really during a time when sci-fi was having an excellent revival I think Star Trek is out at this point, going on television.
Mm-hmm. A couple of years, yeah.
The production values are getting a lot better. The makeup effects in this movie are fucking fantastic, especially for that time. But more than anything, you get this and you get 2001 in the same year. Yeah. Both G-rated science fiction movies and vastly, vastly different science fiction products. And it's just such a great time for science fiction that it's not this time period right in here is where they're just taking a lot of chances. And, even in the early 70s, you get a lot of Omega Man and Soylent Green, all these weird, they're just taking shots. Trilogy. Yeah. They're just taking, I'm just examples, but they're just taking shots like, well, let's try this. Let's try that. Oh, let's do, Body Snatchers or something. So anyway, and here's another thing. I think these movies, especially because they came out when we were kids, by the time that we were young enough to watch television, these were on television on the UHF stations constantly.
Oh
You know,
yeah, I
on
mean,
Saturdays and Sundays, you'd see a Planet of the Apes or an Apes trilogy or an Apes marathon constantly because they could run them without cutting them because they were
mhm,
they were rated G. And the type of
mhm.
nudity that's in these films is I think the reason it gets a G is because there's absolutely no sexuality attached to it at
Exactly.
all.
Yeah.
You know, um,
Um,
but I think a lot of people nowadays would still. It's weird to say that probably nowadays people are more puritanical about it than they were
different
back then.
times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
I
Go
didn't
ahead.
really sit down and really pay attention, watch these movies till around '89, which is why they were so super fresh, where the title of the show came out. But before then, I always had these random memories of seeing parts of it on TV and watching the
Oh yeah.
initial 5 movies and going, "Where was that part I didn't I remembered?" And turning out that some of these parts were the Planet of the Apes TV show, which
Yeah.
came after, which they turned into like movies and then
Right.
syndicated those.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure I even saw part of Time of the Apes on the USA Network way before it was on Mystery Science Theater. Thinking, what is it? That's the Japanese Planet of the Apes ripoff. Okay, so now I know what all this stuff is, but like you were saying, they'd show it so much, and I couldn't make heads or tails of what was what, and then sat down and watched all the movies on VHS. Then it was like,
Yeah.
oh,
I couldn't keep the timeline straight until I was, I mean, probably, because I would ask my grandfather when we'd watch them, and he'd say, "Oh, it's I don't know, it's the one after. It's not the original one. It's the one after that one." You know,
beneath.
but I could never keep the timeline really straight until
Hmm.
much later, like you said, when I watched them in my late teens, and I don't remember. I'll say this: I have a Blu-ray copy of this, so I don't remember it looking that good. It looked and sounded fantastic.
Yeah.
Like really, really good. Jerry Goldsmith's score is really cool. It's very of the time for those types of movies. Um, yeah, I really liked it.
Hmm. Almost everything about the movie makes it kind of timeless, too,
Mm-hmm.
because it's supposed to be a story out of time. They're 2,000 years in the future, and so it I mean, you can tell there's some 60s stuff in there, but
Mm-hmm.
by and large, as a sci-fi outing, it's kind of timeless, which is why I
Yeah.
think it keeps going. And also, like when I was talking a few weeks ago about how Dr. No looked in a way so much fresher than
Yes.
some other movies that are even newer, and this one has that kind of forward blockbuster look in a way before it was a thing. It's like almost has a Star Wars sheen before 10 years before that came out in a way. I mean, it's all sci-fi influenced by Lawrence of Arabia, right? Or Walking Through the Desert, but this time it's talking apes. Now, I'll let you go ahead because I got quite a rant here.
Oh, I think So first off, I have some notes. First off, Charlton Heston is the best worst actor of all time. He's just got that delivery that never changes, no matter who he's playing, whether he's playing Moses or whether he's playing Ben-Hur or whether he's playing Taylor from Planet of the Apes. The man who's blah blah blah, that shit. That's just him. That's just he's never going to change, and that's why I think he's not a very good actor because he doesn't have a lot of range. He's like a really old stage actor where he just gets up there and he stands with his chest out and he says his lines, and that's how it goes. And so, but he's also a lot of fun to watch. I don't deny that there's something about the guy on film that makes him fun to watch. But the beginning of this movie is weird because it's like they do this long trip out to space.
It's like Barbarella.
Yeah, and then they put themselves to sleep to go even further, but they don't program the thing to wake them up for the most important part, which is fucking landing the spaceship. Like that doesn't make any sense to me right off the bat, where it's like, why wouldn't you wake me up so I can land this ship? That doesn't make any sense.
I think something malfunctioned. We were
Oh, did it?
supposed to
Okay.
land in the water, and like it all,
It seems a
fucked
little.
up on 'em,
Maybe it was a little vague. Maybe it was a little vague. Maybe
they are
it was-
vague. They don't talk about it much. Yeah.
But hey, back when you could smoke in space, he's smoking a freaking cigar in space. Can't love it.
Well, so 1968, same year as Barbarella, also, right? So, as we've said in the past,
Even more weird science fiction.
right? Between 68 and 1980, they pretty much assumed the audience was on LSD. So we're always getting these, beginning of this movie where it's all the trippy space,
Yeah.
But then that goes away pretty quick, and the rest of the movie is just, desert and apes, which is also pretty psychedelic when you think about it.
Yeah, and I'll say this, that some of the matte painting usage in this movie is masterful. Like some of it's kind of obvious, but there are others where you don't know that that's matte. I guarantee you, if you watched Apes, there's a couple of shots where you thought that was just the natural Grand Canyon of the desert, and that's just fucking matte. Sorry. But they're really well done in places. Really well done. And then some are a little more obvious. But we cheat the spaceship crash by going POV, by taking a camera and flipping it around and flying it through the desert and into the almost in the water. But that way we keep our production costs low because we have so many freaking latex masks, monkey masks to make. We just don't have time to be doing no special effects crashes.
Exactly. And besides, if they'd woke up and not crashed, they might have figured out where they were right away. And and then anyways, what is it in the next movie? Well, we don't find out about it until the third movie, but during the events of the next movie, Cornelius and Zira find that spaceship and they escape on it into the past.
That's right. That's right.
The world blows up.
And is that the one with the baby monkey that ends up turning into Caesar? Yeah. Okay. Oh, good Lord.
It starts eating its own tail,
I'm not also not harping on the not showing the spaceship crash. I think it's a smart move. I think it's a good money saving move, and I think it was well done. The character Landon, that haircut they gave him, that's a war crime. That thing, it looked like the bowl cut that Jim Carrey has in Dumb and Dumber. Like, it looks really bad.
'Tis the fashion.
Yeah.
Remember Teenage Caveman, the Roger Corman epic, where the law is the word and the word is the law, and we're not allowed to wander out of this area,
right?
And then when we find out that long ago the world got nuked and now you're cavemen, there's no apes in that movie, but it's like this is a nice update of that cornball idea execution into a more interesting version. It's kind of a long Twilight Zone episode in a way.
The laughing transition was an interesting one where he just starts to go ha 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 ha, ha and the camera just and all I can think is Jesus fucking Heston, and the camera just moves past him. It's the weirdest transition in the movie. But hey, at least his cigar survived. You got that cigar at the end, which is good.
We're 2,000 years in the future, and you're putting a flag. I tried to tell you there's nothing left of any of that, but don't worry, your cigar did survive, and certain apes smoke still, so
that's
there
right.
would be something for you to smoke.
Nice. 20 centuries. 20 centuries.
Of course you're on Earth. This should be so obvious to you almost immediately when they're referring to you as man. They're speaking English. There's apes. There's orangutan. There's chimpanzees. And then there's all the hints of how they inherited leftover pieces of man's culture. Everything from taxidermy, turning the hose on you,
Religion.
smoking. It's pretty damn funny. And then when you get to the end, you realize, oh, he's been on Earth the whole time. Well, of course you have. Your ship was programmed to go back to Earth. You just didn't know it because you crashed, right?
Yeah.
You maniacs, you blew it up. Well, I guess we should keep going because maybe there is another jungle on the other side. No, there's not. There's not. But you know what I really caught this time, more than previous viewings? Dr. Zaius. He's such that serious right winger, you know. That's
Yeah.
a paper airplane. No, it's not. Crunch it up in the ball, you know, ignoring the obvious, you know, in the room. But
Well-
also, he's not, because he knows everything that's going on. I'm convinced that he found Landon, and Landon was talking, and they're like, fuck this, and they lobotomized that guy. So as soon as he laid eyes on Taylor, he already knew everything. Is my interpretation of it this time.
Well, Taylor says at one point when he confronts Zaius about that and says, when they're having that big talk where Taylor's got his hands behind his back and chained to his neck, he says, "You found Landon and he was talking, didn't you?" And he said, "I'll do whatever I need to do to save my people." And yeah, he knows. I mean, he knows he knows that humans are dangerous. He knows humans did something terrible, apocalyptic to the world, and that's why the apes are where they are.
He's just convinced that talking humans are coming from that other jungle that he thinks is on the other, not outer space.
He's convinced that there's more Taylors, and there aren't.
Well, guess what? In a way, there will be, because they just keep sending astronauts one after the other until we get up to the TV show where they send several astronauts who all live and then are living amongst the apes, from what I recall of that show. I don't remember that too well. The TV show, but it's set after battle, where, because you know, in Battle of the Planet of the Apes, spoiler, they kind of make it to where ape can kill ape too. They're just as shitty, they're just as stupid as anybody else who has a brain. Pretty much, you're alive, you can be an asshole, I guess, is the moral of Planet of the Apes ultimately. And so man and ape are just living with each other. And so I guess when those astronauts show up, it's more of like they're in that society, as opposed to this version of the timeline where it's, you know, we're just going out there and shooting and stuffing mankind because we're bored and we're apes. And the law is the word and the word is the law. And you're not allowed to go to the Forbidden City, which I guess is New York City.
Well, let's see. And this is where Snake Plissken is.
That's what happens when they don't win and escape from New York.
This is why I don't, or barter towns out there. Yeah, this is one of the reasons that I don't follow most of these films after the first one, especially for the apes. You know, I've seen that they just get more and more kind of hokey and insane, and like you said, they start to eat their own tail and create this insane timeline.
It's like Terminator or something.
Yeah, like way worse though.
Conquest is a good one, though, even though it's part 4, the Uprising one. That one kind of works. But the Beneath, with all the fucking mutants, oh my god, that might be the hardest to sit through. And then Escape is bizarre because it's suddenly the 60s to cut costs, I'm guessing. And then Battle is just, oh yeah, they're just having a battle, and then the one gorilla kills another gorilla, and it's like, oh, ape can kill ape? Well, yeah, no shit. Anything can happen. Lawgiver decided, I guess we all have to live in peace now. So. But Dr. Zaius knew the whole fucking time, that motherfucker, and he's playing it up, you know. And you think he's being boneheaded, but he really knows, and he's trying to keep the status quo and covering it up. And by doing so, he's creating the very thing he's trying to prevent, because there's a fucking doll that has a damn squeaker voice box in it. And why would an ape make a human doll that talks? Well, people make ape dolls that talk. If you look far enough, you could probably find those in the rubble too. Right? If they went to the mutant city, they'd find all sorts of weird fucking artifacts. But that hasn't happened until part 2, so...
So 21 minutes into the movie to get to the crash and get moving.
Mm-hmm.
26 minutes, still no monkeys. 27 minutes, we have to see Heston's naked ass. They get jacked by post-humans. A lot of artfully placed bushes and rocks to hide schlongs. And then, bam, 32 minutes in, Act 2 starts.
32 minutes until Apes. That's less than 80 minutes of Apes.
Yep.
Good pacing.
Yeah. I disagree. I think for me, the first 30 minutes of this movie really drags.
Yeah.
Really drags. It's just, I want it to be 20 minutes.
But for its time,
But I also get it. It's taking its time. It's doing what it does. I'm not angry at it. I just kind of wish it was a little bit shorter. I wish it got going a little bit faster. All of the orangutans remind me of Paul Williams.
And only one of them is.
Mm-hmm. Why such a weirdly shaped outdoor cage to keep all the humans in? Like why this weird like it looks like an art piece you'd put in front of a public library.
It's the weird leftovers of human society, or a set decorator getting arty.
Also, they mentioned that he got a blood transfusion from Nova, but I don't remember seeing a blood transfusion or them doing one.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, but he says they talk about the fact that Taylor got a blood transfusion from Nova due to the surgery that they had to do.
Oh yeah, there is a small piece of that sequence where they're like,
is there? Okay.
Up and then they're.
Did I look away for a second and miss it?
You might have, yeah.
Okay. All right. 51 minutes in. First mention of the Forbidden Zone.
Mm-hmm.
51 minutes in.
Turns out that's where they were the whole time. That long, boring part. It's Forbidden Zone.
So once we get to Ape City, I guess we call it. Is that what we call it? It's to me, it becomes very Star Trek. It feels very set built like Star Trek. Like, it's like an away mission almost. It feels very, and maybe that's just me as a kid watching all these things together, because they were all on the UHF stations, but I just, especially the music, you're just like, oh, it feels like the Gorn fight or something. It's
like the Barbarella music. This stuff from 68 is just in the amber of 68 in some places,
There's some interesting shot choices. Like I said, the laughing transition is one. At one point during Chuck's being chased through the city, Taylor is being chased through the city, and he runs like right over the top of the camera, just crotch and all, which is a very interesting shot. And then 1 hour in, we have Taylor finally speak.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie, by the way, is an hour and 52. Is that right? Yeah, hour and 52 minutes.
The original working title of the movie was Crotch and All.
Crotch and All? That makes sense.
Sounds like an antidepressant.
Crotch and All. Oh my God, that's great.
But yeah, it feels like it's over 2 hours, but it's not. They pack it all in.
Yeah, that's what I mean by pacing. I wish that first 30 minutes felt like 20. I don't mind that it was 30 minutes, but I wish that it felt like it was 20 because it feels like a full 30 minutes. Well, and like you said, the movie feels like a bit longer than it actually is.
Mm-hmm. Well, strap in for next week when you're watching Beneath the Planet of the Apes and begging for the pacing of the beginning. No, I'm not doing.
All right.
Maybe down the line sometime, but not anytime soon.
Why do all the apes start smoking in the last part of this movie? It's like suddenly the keeper smokes a cigar. Mm-hmm. The Dr. Zaius is having a drag.
Right, they're dropping more hints that they've just taken over the leftovers of Earth society. Maybe because they're clearly next to New York City that was really obliterated. Mm-hmm. It's very primitive, but it makes you wonder what's going on in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Remember in the comics, they had in England, the apes had technology. And ride around on motorcycles and shit. Was in the comic books they did for that.
That's one of my comments was, so we have guns, right? There's this. It's the weird society. They have guns, but they don't have any steam engines. They don't have any cars. I don't see a lot of engineering. What smiths are making these gun barrels and these molded kind of plastics or these woods? Where is this? In industry that's creating these things. Who's making the bullets?
That's true. That must have been the tech that was handed down. I think in like battle, I think they have like an armorer or they go somewhere to like stock up on weapons. So they kind of but it takes them 5 movies to get around to maybe an explanation. But you're right. It's like, it's selective tech that survived, while other things just completely were forgotten about.
That's okay. That's crazy.
It's weird. It's it's a long Twilight Zone episode.
It is. That's a good way to put it. It's like a Night Gallery or a Twilight episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very much so. It's kind of king of the late night movies in a way. Like, this is a great catch it at 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night and watch it all the way through with your grandfather or somebody that loves science fiction type of thing. It's a great movie. It has a lot of nostalgia for me.
Now, going back to the movie Joyride with Bobcat Goldthwait and Dana Gould. Dana Gould, one of his characters he does on stage in a web show is as Dr. Zaius doing a talk show. So he must be a very big Apes fan. And of course, I was getting that Dr. Zaius musical from The Simpsons stuck in my head too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and this kept going. Do you remember the Rock Me Dr. Zaius? And we both started Dr. Zaius, Dr. Zaius.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched The Simpsons in over 20 years regularly, and certain things you just never forget.
Yeah, you just never forget. Yeah, it's like Homer coating his mouth with wax so he could eat that pepper, and he has a psychedelic reaction. That's so good.
Backing into the hedge, there's just certain things.
Only an apostate would flee to the forbidden zone, Marty.
What if Robert Vaughn had been in this movie instead of Teenage Caveman? Robert Vaughn of SOB and Teenage Caveman fame. Oh, and remember Moon 02 came out around this time too, so we just had all sorts of sci-fi.
Oh, jeez. This is what I'm talking about, man. Do you think they paid that Nova actress a full wage? Because she has no speaking lines in the movie at all.
Knowing that of its time period, probably not.
Probably not. Yep.
She returns for the sequel, though. It's more than I can say for Charlton Heston. They go to it's the dude from Space Travelers, right? It's James Franciscus, right? Isn't part 2? Star
Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Star of Devilfish.
Yeah, James Franciscus. Yeah. Directed by Ted Post. Let's see. Did you think they did ADR for all these apes, right? Like they redid the ADR in studio for all these guys, right?
There's got to be a lot of ADR in this. I mean, there's shots where they're walking and you don't see anybody's faces, and it's like, I mean, they do a good sound mix, but it just feels.
Even then, it's like, even during some of the close-up stuff, I mean, it's just, I don't see how that stuff's getting through very well. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah.
No, you're probably right. They probably did re-record all that.
The ending is iconic, but man, that denouement takes a while. Like, I mean, that whole scene at the cave with Dr. Zaius it's kind of, it takes a minute to sort itself out and resolve. And then we get on the horse, and then we're traveling along, and then we've somehow rounded a part of the water where there's no beach. And now we're on a beach, and oh my God, you maniac, she blew it up, which is, again, iconic, amazing.
Remember your failure at the cave. I think it's just that movies were paced differently back then. You wanted a nice long movie to just sit in your chair and get your
Yeah.
money's worth back in the day.
Sure.
And now we're like, I want to see the monster right now. They used to show you the monster in the last 5 minutes of the old movies, but I know what you mean.
Well, and again, it's like, again, I think it's just it's. I don't mind a long movie, but it's a style choice, right? Like, show me, keep me interested, keep me from drifting, keep me from thinking about something else other than the movie, right? If you're going to make, but this one does it for the most part a damn good job of that. I'm not complaining. There's just a few parts where I was like, But once we get the monkeys and once we get to the humans and they steal their clothes and all that stuff and it starts going, then it really takes off.
I mean, compared to the remake from around the era of Shanghai Noon, actually.
Good God,
it's
that
faster paced, but it don't help, does it?
No, it will, because that thing tries to do all kinds of different stuff. Like it really, it really loses its freaking mind.
Now that's one that I wouldn't have any intention of bringing on. If anything, I would do the other 4 Apes and then use it as an excuse to watch the new ones, of which I've only ever seen first. But that would be
and I'll say this: I do like the new mocap's hell of a lot better than I like that Burton version. I mean, the mocaps are not bad. They really are not bad. Andy Serkis and his team have done a really good job with those.
One of the last things I have is, just because the movie is so old doesn't mean that you should spoil it on the poster. They put the Statue of Liberty seen on the poster at the front of the box. Yeah. They've been doing that for like 20 years. Like, guys, really? Well, you all know it. Well, not everybody. But I guess it's just so, woven into the pop culture that it's like, you might as well put a picture of a sled on the cover of Citizen Kane.
Mm-hmm.
Odd choice. I mean, I get it because it's iconic, but it's the end of the movie, guys. Why are you putting it on the front of the box? Because Dr. Zaius knew the whole fucking time.
Dr. Zaius knew the whole fucking time.
But he thought he was doing the right thing. Everybody thought they were on the right side of history in that movie, Planet of the Apes.
That's how fascism starts, Marty.
It's very interesting how the politics of
thin line
or the politics of now in that movie. It's a timeless movie.
Timeless.
I give it 4.5 stars.
I think I've been thinking about this one a lot. It's not a movie that I'm going to watch quite a bit, but when I catch it, I like it quite a bit. I think it's technically really well done. I'm probably going to have to go 4 stars. I don't think it's 4.5 or 5.
Yeah. But it's classic. We can both agree on that.
It's extremely classic, yeah. And I thinking back, I may reserve my right to bump it up a bit, but I think 4, because again, it's denouement takes a bit, and it takes a bit to get going. Like, I mean, at one point we're just watching Taylor kind of bait his crew and be a dick. It's like, can we just move it along? Yeah, like, come on. I mean, that's not character development. That's just Taylor going, hey, everybody you know's dead. What, 20th century? Shut up. Chomp on a cigar, classic Heston.
He saw the clock. It's like these Back to the Future DeLorean clocks, these time machine.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So, yeah, that was interesting. Shanghai Noon. I figured you'd have about that reaction to it. So,
wow. Talk about taking a while to get going. That one kind of did too, in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Forbidden Zone, Forbidden City. I did think that was pretty funny that they connected that way. I didn't politics too. I think so.
But I didn't find any direct connection between. Maybe Fish Out of Water. I don't know. There's no direct connection between the two of them. But what do you got for me? What do you got for me next? Is it my turn?
Oh, it doesn't really matter anymore.
Okay. All right. Well, you go ahead. I don't care.
Okay. So we have 2 episodes left of season 2, and then season 3 starts the very next week. No blip for you, listener, but for us, we change to a slightly different format configuration. You'll see, or you'll
see.
hear, I guess. So, what are we doing for the next episode? We are finishing off a trilogy, and you knew this was coming because the season's almost over. It is the whole reason we watched those other movies was to get to this one before midnight.
Okay. All right.
The only one I really wanted him to watch, but I can't show him that one without showing him the other two audience.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was going to happen. So I can't say I'm surprised.
I'm ripping the Band-Aid off next week.
I've been bouncing around quite a bit what I want to do for the last couple movies. And there have been two directors that we've been skirting that we haven't really talked about. But I'm going to give you Train Spotting.
Okay, here we go. More into things I was expecting because I mentioned I hadn't seen it.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you Train Spotting. I think it's...
Well, these should go well together.
Yeah, it's a side door into Danny Boyle's filmmaking. It had a big impact on his career and that type of thing. But I think he's had bigger movies. 28 Days Later, in particular, Slumdog Millionaire. So, and I think is this his first?
If it's not, it's got to be one of. So maybe a natural starting point.
Yeah.
There's even a sequel, which I haven't seen.
This is more of a direct sort of introduction to a director than we would normally do. The other one I had for you, I decided to change up and give you this one instead. So,
what kind of Star Wars fan are you? You haven't seen Train Spotting. My first introduction to Ewan McGregor was The Phantom Menace. I mean, I knew of this movie, but it's just, for some reason or another, this one just didn't cross my path. I always wanted to see it.
I'm interested to see what you think about it. I think it's one of those movies that really can challenge you and can be quite a roller coaster ride. If you or it can be a very painful watch. It just depends on how you land.
Oh boy, these movies really are going to go well together. Indie cinema next week.
All right, Piss Shirt Ben Bar.
Where apes evolved from men?
Later.
Thanks. Support the show on Buzzsprout for only $3 a month. Give us a 5-star review on Spotify or the platform of your choice. And be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page.